everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Emily. Thanks for watching. Today's another reading vlog, and it is going to be my first spoiler-esque vlog. So what I think I'm going to do, I was going to do a full spoiler vlog for this, but I think what I'm going to do is like a non-spoiler vlog, and then at the end when I talk about the books, I'll let you know that it's going to be spoilered from then on, and if you don't want to know the spoilers, you can just stop watching. But I'm going to be reading the entire Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare. This is part of the Shadowhunters universe. I really don't know anything about these books. We have Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess, and I will be starting with Clockwork Angel, obviously. I don't, like I said, know anything about this other than it's part of the Shadowhunters universe. I'm assuming they're Shadowhunters, and it just takes place in Victorian England. That's all I got. So I think it's like similar to maybe the Mortal Instruments, but it just takes place in Victorian England instead of current day New York City. But I've heard that this is some people's favorite series in the Shadowhunters universe, and this is a series I have never read from Cassandra Clare, so I'm very excited to read this and get further on my incentive to read all of these books by the end of the year. So I'm going to try to read straight through all three of these. You probably won't know if I take a break in between them because I won't vlog any of that, but I would like to just get them done. So gonna do my best to just read through all three. They are chunky, well the last two are, but they're not as big as the Dark Artifices. Those ones are very large, and I think so is the Last Hours, but I only have one of those right now. So I'll get to reading, and then I'll come back with some spoiler-free thoughts and feelings. At least on this book I can kind of give a plot, an overall plot, before it gets too detailed, but the rest of the books I won't be able to do that, obviously, because they'll probably take place after what goes on in this one. So I'll touch base in a bit. All right, so I'm coming at you when I've technically finished this vlog because I don't remember how well I explained this at the beginning because the overall plan for this vlog kind of changed as I was reading the first book. I was going to do a complete spoiler vlog for this, and then I was like, no, I'll just do a spoiler-free one, and then I decided I'll do both. So as you'll see throughout the vlog, if you watch the whole thing, it's going to be dual. So from the end of this part of the video to this timestamp will be spoiler-free. So I basically filmed a spoiler-free and then immediately filmed a spoiler version of my thoughts on the books and where I was at them in that point in time. And I'm just going to separate it out. So the beginning of this vlog will be spoiler-free, and if you do want the spoiler, you can go to the end of that timestamp and just watch the spoiler part. If you don't want the spoilers, you can stop watching at that point, and I will put a little extra warning on there when it goes from spoiler free to spoiler, just so that nobody misses that and accidentally hears something they don't want to hear. This is my Infernal Devices vlog, and I hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, first update for Clockwork Angel. I'm, I don't know, like 40% of the way through, and honestly, this feels like the Mortal Instruments but in Victorian England right now. So we have our Shadowhunter characters. Our main ones, I think, are going to be Will Herondale, and then James, something with a C. They call him Jem. And then our main female character is Tessa, and she has this like unique power. They think she's a downworlder, so this is a little bit different from Shadowhunters because like Tessa would be like the Clary, but they're not exactly the same. And then Jessamine, who is another female Shadowhunter that's living at the Institute. So there is an Institute there, just like there is in Mortal Instruments. And there's a mystery afoot that is involving Tessa. Again, kind of similar to Clary, had the mystery with her mother missing. Tessa's brother has been kidnapped and is missing. The more I talk about this, the more it really just does feel like the Mortal Instruments Part 2, but earlier on. We're seeing characters that are discussed in the Mortal Instruments, like years later, obviously. There are some, because it's downworlders and stuff, there are some characters that are the same, that we're slowly being introduced to and like learning more about their backstory, which is why I think it makes sense that I'm reading these books now in the middle of the Mortal Instruments series. The more I read the books in this universe in the order that Cassandra Clare tells you to, the more it makes sense to me. That's pretty much where we are. Tessa is now with the Shadowhunters. They're trying to uncover what has happened to her brother and what is going on, because there's like a bigger plot afoot as well. So that's where we are. I think those are going to be our main three characters. Those names sound familiar. from like people that I've heard talk about these before, so I think that is what is going on. But so far it's good. Like, it's interesting, it's holding my attention, but it is so far building up very similarly to how the Mortal Instruments started. And they're going to a party now. And that happened also. If someone gets turned into something, then it will be exactly the same. So I'm going to continue reading, and I might update today. I might just wait until tomorrow. I'm probably going to finish this by tomorrow because I'm going through it pretty quick, but I'll talk to y'all when I'm further or done. Hey everyone. So I finished Clockwork Angel today, like this morning. Yeah, this morning. I liked this. I mean, it's not like a 5-star read for me, but I really did like this. I, again, still think that this like storyline is very similar to Mortal Instruments in my opinion at this point. There was a nice little twist at the end, which I think will lead well into this next book, Clockwork Prince. But it was like, there was a lot of action in the last 100 pages or so. So there was a lot to unpack in the last 100 pages. There was the kind of mystery from the book was unveiled, and then it led into like what's going to happen in the next ones. This was very, the ending was very like was it the third Mortal Instruments book coded? So again, the stories are similar. I mean, they're going to be, they're Shadowhunter stories, they're fighting demons, they're dealing with downworld, it's gonna be very, very similar. But I do like our characters. I like Tessa a lot. Will definitely reminds me a lot of Jace. And Jem is definitely like a Simon, which is a little bit different, I think, than Mortal Instruments. But those are our 3 main characters, and I really do like them. So that will be good for the next 2 books, I think. And then I did start Clockwork Prince. I only have about 50 pages read. And it did just pick up, obviously, right where this one left off. And there's like, there were things at the end that were kind of left vague, and now we're learning a little bit about it, but there's still a lot of like secrets being told at the beginning of this book and like slowly coming out. Again, only read 50 pages. I like it. This series is fun. I don't really know how to rate it against Mortal Instruments, like, because to me, they're very similar at this point. But maybe the stories will change drastically in this one. I think I've heard a lot of people like this book the best out of these 3. So we'll see what my thoughts are. Okay, so I'm a little over halfway done with Clockwork Prince. And I'm liking this book better than Clockwork Angel. The story's really picking up. It's more high stakes. I like the story that's going on in the background. It is starting to make itself a little bit different from the Mortal Instruments, but there still are aspects of it that are very much similar to that. But there's even characters that, like, we're getting more and more characters that are like crossing the series. But I mean, it's intentional. It's supposed to be like that. I really don't have much else to say other than there's been things that have been surprising me that are happening. And I'm like very invested now, I think, in the characters more so than I was in the first book, now that I've had 2 books, like almost 2 books with them. So we'll see how this book ends and then goes into the finale. There's like certain things that I don't know which way I want her to land on with. I know there's like paths that could happen in the story, and I don't know which way they're gonna go. So that'll be interesting to see what she does, but I like it. It's fun. They're quick. I don't want to stop reading them. So that's always good. When you want to continue reading a book, that means you're enjoying it. I don't know that any of these will be 5-star reads for me, but I do like this one more than the first one. So we'll continue on with this and then see what that 3rd book has in store. So I think last time we spoke, I was still reading Clockwork Prince. I have since finished. I did like this more than Clockwork Angel just because there was a little bit more action and the characters were more developed and we knew the characters. The ending of this one had like a nice little surprise that has like added to the 3rd book, and the characters and the development between like them and their relationships and all of that. That was a fun little surprise at the end. There were a few surprises at the end that kind of drove the story into the next part. So I did like this. Again, not a 5-star read. I don't think any of the books in this series will be a 5-star read for me. I am enjoying them, but I'm not like, they're not knocking my socks off. I'm very particular about anything I give 5 stars. But this one I still really enjoyed. And I love Cassandra Clare's writing. It's so easy to digest and so easy to get through. And her world building happens like slowly. It's not a lot in your face all at once. She kind of gives you enough information as you continue going on. So I did enjoy that. And then I'm now about 200 pages into Clockwork Princess, which is the final book in this series. We have now got to the point where we know what the infernal devices are. You knew what they were the whole time, but this is the first book that it's actually explicitly laid out in. And this starts with a whole bunch of action. The first like big scene of this book is what drives the story immediately, and it doesn't shy away from action starting at the beginning, and it's just been continuing since then. There is a little bit of the storyline that I'm not enjoying, and I don't know what it says about me as a person that I'm not enjoying that, but it's something that Cassandra Clare does, or at least she did in the Mortal Instruments, that I didn't love either, and that is a love triangle. I'm not liking how that's going. That's kind of taking away from it a little bit for me because it's irritating me a little bit, and I feel like you're supposed to like both of the options, but I like one more than the other, which is normal in that situation, and it's not going the way I want it to go. We'll just say that. So still enjoying this. Big thing just happened, like a big turning point just happened at this point in the book, so I'm excited to see how that plays out. There's a lot of things that need to be tied up in the last, how long is this book? 350 pages or so that I still have to read. There's a lot that needs to be tied up in this story, so interested to see how that goes. I do now remember where I remember Tessa from in the other books, so I do love that we're getting the right storyline and the characters are being introduced in this universe at the right time based on how I'm reading this. So that's where I am, and I may check in one more time. I don't know. I'm gonna continue reading tonight, and then I'll still be reading this tomorrow, but I may finish by the time I come home. It depends on how much I get done tonight and if I actually get a lunch tomorrow to read. But if not, I'll update one more time before I wrap up. So I finished Clockwork Princess. So some final thoughts about the series as a whole. I liked the overall storyline that went on throughout the 3 books. In Clockwork Princess, I was a little upset with like how quickly it wrapped up. I felt like we had 3 relatively long books that led up to a final showdown that was very anticlimactic, I think. I also did not love the love triangle in the entire series. There is a love triangle, and Cassandra Clare loves her love triangles. I didn't like how this one was handled in the end. I don't really want to say anything else more than that because I don't want to ruin anything, but I loved the characters individually. That was the one aspect of like characters and character development that I did not like in the series. But other than that, I really did enjoy the characters as themselves and all of that and how they fit into the story, other than that, like the romance aspect of it. The friendships and the way, like the found family and all of that, I loved that. I liked how everybody else's relationships kind of like ended in the final book, and the story and all of the loose ends that were tied up and all of the explanations of what happened to lead them to this point and to lead Tessa to this point and who she is and why she is the way she is and all of that. I loved that. I thought that was well done, but that was the only thing I didn't love about that. So progressively the books got better in rating for me overall. Clockwork Angel was a 4, Clockwork Prince was a 4.25, and I gave Clockwork Princess a 4.5 because I did think it wrapped up the story well, other than the fact that I do think the overarching storyline with the Magister was kind of a very quick anticlimactic ending. But I still enjoyed it. I think it was an interesting story. I love the ties to the Mortal Instruments and the other characters the best. We did have a character in this book, in this series, that is in the Mortal Instruments, and I believe will probably be in every one of the series. I don't know yet. Obviously, I haven't read The Dark Artifices and I haven't read The Last Hours, but I'm hoping that character is throughout all of them. I think that would be a nice cohesive thing for the series. I enjoyed it. Is it my favorite? I don't know yet. I have to finish The Mortal Instruments again, which will be next month, to see how that stacks up against this, because it's been so long since I've read that series, and then I still haven't read the other ones. So I will see at the end of the year which series is my favorite, what my ranking of the 4 major series within this universe are, and then now there will be a 5th one. So that'll be interesting to see how that stacks up once that's out in 2-3 years time, when it's all hopefully out, hopefully we won't have too many years. I did enjoy my time reading this. They were quick reads, quicker than I thought, considering how large they are. They are YA, so they still read pretty YA, and the romance was very like closed-doored YA. So I did like that. The spice was not intense or anything. It didn't take away from the story at all, because the story is about shadow hunters and the demons and the bad guy within this series. So definitely recommend. I do, at this point, I will probably do like a giant video, not like giant video, but an over-encompassing video of this entire series at the end of the year when I'm through the entire universe. But as of right now, I would definitely recommend looking up the order of the books in the way that Cassandra Clare thinks you should read them, because this made so much sense. Reading the first 3 Mortal Instruments books, reading the Red Scrolls of Magic, now reading this, and now I'm going back to finish the Mortal Instruments next. So far, it makes a lot of sense. So I will see where the other series stack up for that. But that is the end of the spoiler-free part of the vlog. So if that's it for you, thank you so much for watching, and I'm not sure how many more spoiler-free vlogs I will do for this series. I may do another one. I don't know that I'll do one for the Mortal Instruments second half. I may do one for the Dark Artifices and for the Last Hours. We'll just see how those months pan out. So thank you if this is the end for you, and I hope to see you in the next video. As I was saying in the non-spoiler part, this is very, very, very similar to how the Mortal Instrument starts. So you have your character that doesn't know that she's part of the Shadow Universe, but she's a downworlder as opposed to Clary, who was a Shadow Hunter. And you're following her story into the depths of what is happening in the Shadow world. And instead of like Clary's mother going missing, it's Tessa's brother. So it's building up very similarly. I think like the circumstances are a little different, but the story overall seems the same. And now that like, the more I talk about it, the more I'm kind of actually mad. But Magnus Bane's obviously being introduced. We haven't met him yet, but he's been talked about. Camilla that we meet in the Mortal Instruments has been introduced. So that's exciting to see like their origins, I guess is the best way to say that. And then like I know that I think James Carstairs, that was his name. I forgot his last name when we were talking about him earlier. But like Tessa, I feel like becomes one of Magnus's like best friends. I swear she was just in the last book that I read, but my brain, I think she like showed up at the end of it. So it is making sense where I'm reading this now within the universe in the books, but it is opening very similarly to how the Mortal Instruments did. So we'll see if that changes now. They're on their way to a party. Magnus Bane will be at the party. If someone turns into a rat, we're gonna have issues, because if you know, you know. I'm interested to see what comes out about Tessa's past. I think she ends up being a warlock, even though they don't think she's one, if I remember correctly. I feel like she's a warlock, but I'm not 100% sure, because again, she wasn't like a main character in any of the Mortal Instruments books. She's just kind of mentioned. So that's the spoiler part of it. I guess I'll talk more once I'm finished. So as I said, the story, like I did not see the twist at the end coming. I will say I did not think that that guy was going to be the Magister. I really did think it was going to be the vampire. And I didn't see her brother's betrayal coming. So that was really interesting that they threw that in at the end. And it reminded me a lot of like when Clary finds out that Jace isn't her brother and like she has a brother and it's Jonathan. And when her like dad died, I think that's the end of the third book. Or does her dad just die at the end of the third book? No, I think we know about, no, we know about Jonathan. Yeah, we know about Jonathan. So that was really coded from that. The whole like Will pining over Tessa really reminds me of like the Jason Clary situation. We don't know why at this point. I don't know why at this point. Will for some reason can't be with her, which leads me into Clockwork Prince spoilers-ish stuff. Is at the end of this book when he went to like Magnus for help, we're now seeing a little bit about why that happened, which I'm curious to see what this curse is that Magnus is trying to help him like get rid of, and why it's preventing him from being with Tessa. And why he's so like put off from being with her. I mean, I guess she's a downworlder and there are like, you know, shadow hunters and downworlders can't be together kind of things, but I feel like there's a deeper reason that he's trying to distance himself from her, even though he has like strong feelings. So I'm interested about that. And I want to know what this whole, like, we never really learned what the whole purpose of, like, the Clockwork Angel pendant was that Tessa wore in the first book that, like, helped her at the end. I understand that's why the book was called that, but I think this whole, like, story as it unravels and the whole clockwork part of it comes out is going to be very interesting. And that is, I think, what's going to set it aside from the Mortal Instruments. But we'll see. I want to know who those initials were on the thing that what's his name? Not De Quincey, but the other, Mortmain. I want to know what those initials were, JTS. I have a feeling I know who it is, but that's so obvious. Like, it can't be him. But I have a little bit of a feeling that I know who it is. I'll let you know once I get there if I find out who it is, whether or not I was right. There's so much that still needs to unravel, so I think this is just going to get better as it goes along. The first book didn't knock my socks off. I enjoyed it. I liked our characters. I liked the story. I did like the twist at the end. We'll see how it goes from there. They're introducing, I'm at the point right now where the two Lightwood brothers, Gabriel, and I can't remember the other one because we haven't really met him yet, he was just mentioned, are going to be coming to train Tessa and Sophie, and possibly Jessamine. I feel like they're going to be a little bit of a villain in this, and obviously the Lightwoods are a big thing in the Mortal Instruments, so it'll be interesting to see how that relates to these ones, because the dad, Benedict, I think his name is, he's an absolute jerk, and Gabriel's no better, but we know now that, like, Will has a history with the sister, and then we don't really know what happened there yet, but then I remember Tessa caught him, like, saying Cecily over and over. I'm not sure that that's that's her. Maybe something happened to her. I don't know, because we haven't met her, so is she still alive? I don't know. We'll find out. I guess I'll find out. If you're watching this part of it, hopefully you know, and I'm not ruining anything. But, yeah, so far so good. See where I get with this book tonight. I'm moving through these faster than I thought I would. The books are, like, impressively pretty thick, like they're 500 pages roughly. The next one's even longer, but they read fast because they are YA books, so it's not like super high fantasy, hard to read kind of stuff. So I do not love the little love triangle thing that's going on. I'm not a fan. I didn't like that with the whole Simon, Clary, Jace thing, and now we're getting it with Jem, Will, and Tessa. Don't like it, but I guess Cassandra Clare writes those, so I'll just deal. And I'll talk to you guys once I've read more. Okay, so I hate love triangles, at least the way Cassandra Clare writes them, and I'm hoping that's not something that's going to continue into the Dark Artifices and the, what's the last one? The Time one? Yeah, whatever, the, like, newest trilogy. And I did also find out that she has another trilogy coming out, not until like 2025, 2026 or something like that. It's going to be the final trilogy in the Shadowhunters universe. But I don't like a love triangle where there's not a clear, like, leader. I don't mind it if it's like, you know, that these two characters are gonna end up together. There's just like this other person that's kind of being an inconvenience. But I don't like how she writes them where it's like, you don't know which way she's gonna go. And she did that in Mortal Instruments. And she's doing this now with Jem and Will and obviously Tessa. I like that we're learning more and more about Will and, like, what happened in his history and with this demon and his curse and everything, and I'm hoping that gets resolved, obviously. And then I do love that Magnus is still in these books. He is probably my favorite character in the Mortal Instruments. I just love him. I love his personality and just, like, his character. So I like that every book I've read so far, up to this point, he's been in. So he was obviously in the Mortal Instruments. He was in the Red Scrolls of Magic. He's in this book, and, like, we're seeing how the Red Scrolls of Magic ties into this with, like, the whole Book of White and everything. So it makes sense. It makes sense. I am understanding why we're reading these in this order. And I think that it'll make sense when I read the next 3 books in the Mortal Instruments. Like, I think some characters that are in this book may be discussed in the last 3 books because they're familiar to me, and I don't know that they've been discussed too much in the first 3. So I'm sure that the order she's telling me to read these in makes complete sense because it already does. But I love it when things are cohesive like that in, like, canon, and that's making my little, like, brain light up and be happy. So where are we now? We just found out that Jessamine is married to Tessa's brother, which that was a little bit of a shock. I didn't expect that betrayal. I thought, like, when she was sneaking out, when, like, Tessa and Sophie were seeing Jessie sneak out, I thought she was doing something way different. I thought she was like training to be a shadow hunter without them knowing about it, but she was completely betraying them. So that was a bit of a shock. I don't really feel bad for her because she made her choices. And I think she's actually under a spell. It seems like that they have her under a spell. So I'm not sure how much of it she's willingly doing at this point. I'm sure we'll find out. But she's been like super shallow and I don't love that. I don't love her character. I don't know that you're supposed to like her character. I guess we'll find out once I finish this book or the series. But I haven't really liked her. She's just been kind of annoying the entire time. And I don't like the Lightwoods in this, which is upsetting because I do like Alec and Isabel in The Mortal Instruments. But I'm not like a huge fan of their parents. Knowing what happens in the last 3 books, even I'm not a huge fan of like the parents of the Lightwoods, but I really don't like the Lightwoods in this, except for the older brother. He's not too bad. It starts with his like name starts with a G. And I don't like, what is it with Cassandra Clare? This also bothered me. And the whole brother-sister stuff. Like, honestly, we had to deal with Jason Clary in the first books, and now Gideon. And now we're looking, like, the whole scene that we just had when she finds out that Jessie is married to her brother, that got a little weird real quick. I mean, if you know that she was disguised as Jessie and he was getting a little too weird. Why? Why do we have to have I don't like it. But other than that, it's been great. So we'll see how this book ends up finishing out. So last we talked, I was still speaking of this book. I believe I was still reading The Clockwork Prince. This love triangle's killing me because it's not going the way I want it to go. And I don't know what that says about me because I feel like you're supposed to like really like Jem as a person and as a character, but I don't. I think he's being selfish and I think he's so blind to what is going on with the girl that he wants to marry and his best friend that it's shocking because everybody else sees what he doesn't see. And I think it's just because he's being a little selfish. And I hate saying that because of like what he is dealing with was like his drug addiction and the fact that he is dying. But I do think what he's doing is very selfish. And it actually is said by Gabriel in the 3rd book. And he says that pretty much like, you're going to marry somebody to make them a widow. Yeah, I don't like that. And that is what he's doing because he doesn't really want to fight for a cure. He just wants to live out the short rest of his life as much as he can, but not thinking about like what that's going to do to Tessa and what that's going to do to Will, and the fact that he's putting his wants and needs and just the fact that he wants that little bit of happiness at the end ahead of them. And I know this is probably making me sound like a terrible person, but I think it's selfish. So there's that. I don't know if we had talked, like I don't remember if the Lightwoods had their little party yet where you find out the Benedict Lightwood is in bed essentially with Mortman and that he does have like the demon pox that Will has been talking about and that nobody believed him existed. But we find out about that, and then like Cecily, Will's sister, comes back into play right at the end of the book, which is really cool. And I do love how she has now become part of the 3rd book. So moving on to that, this was not like a 5-star read for me. I did enjoy this, but there are big parts of the story that I don't like. And obviously like a main character that I'm really not a huge fan of. So that is what's holding me back, I think, from giving it a higher rating. I am now about 200 pages into Clockwork Princess. And this started off with a bang right into the Lightwoods needing help because Gabriel Lightwood had succumbed to demon pox and was now a demon. And then there's also like the intertwining of the consul writing back and forth with the council, I believe, about how they want Charlotte to take over for him. And he's like, nope. Even though in the first few books, he was like really on her side for keeping the Institute and everything. And now all of a sudden he's like, no, I actually don't support her and she shouldn't even have the job that she has now. So that's kind of, there's a little bit of two-face going on there, and I feel like something's going to come back around with him that we're not seeing yet because he's now having like the Lightwood brothers spy for him, even though they're like, yeah, we'll spy for you, but they're not really. And then the whole thing with Jem and Tessa continuing in this book and him just like not forcing, but like really pushing her to like get married now. I don't like that. Like I said, I think it's selfish. I think he knows that he doesn't have a lot of time left and he's just trying to like marry her before he dies, which I I don't like that. I don't like that part of the story. I'm sorry if that makes me a bad person, but I just don't. I don't like that. And what it's doing to Will, and it's what it's doing to Tessa too. Like, she's obviously not going through this easily. The little relationship that's like kind of forming between Gideon and Sophie, I think they're adorable. And then you're seeing, what's the name of the little cook? Bridget. Bridget just like opened a can of whoop ass on these automatons, I think is how you say it. Didn't see that coming. But like, Tessa has now been kidnapped by these things, and obviously the Magister. And Miss Black, who just won't die. Or Mrs. Black, I think she's Mrs. Who just won't die. So, I'm assuming the story's really going to pick up at this point. And we'll see where it goes from there. And then like everybody, like what Jessamine just passed. She was literally just brought back from the Silent City and was killed during this attack. And then Jem has just collapsed because he probably overexerted himself in that battle, and he hasn't been taking his yin fen. Or we'll see how this plays out, but there's a lot that needs to be answered, I think, in the last 300 and so pages of this book. So I will update maybe once more. We'll see how far I get tonight. I'm not going to finish this book tonight, but we'll see where I get, and I may update once more, or you may see me just with my final thoughts on this book and the series in general. All right, so I just finished Clockwork Princess, and I felt like the whole thing with Mortmain at the end and how he was defeated with her Clockwork Angel and everything was just, it was this giant lead up to this confrontation for all of these pages, for it to be done in like 2 pages. It was, I just felt like that part of the story needed a little bit more maybe. I felt like the end of the book was definitely more focused on wrapping up the relationships and what happened like with Jem and Will and all of that, and like making sure that Sophie and Gideon had their happy ending and Gabriel and Cecily had their happy ending, and figuring out where Tessa stood with Will and Jem. I feel like that overtook, and even like Charlotte and Henry, I feel like that overtook the story more than the actual storyline that we'd been following for 3 books. So that was kind of like why this book wasn't a 5-star for me. Overall, the books got progressively higher in rating for me. Clockwork Angel was a 4, Clockwork Prince was a 4.25, and Clockwork Princess was a 4.5, just because I do think she did do a good job of tying up all the loose ends and answering all the questions that kind of came out and filling in the little plot holes that happened throughout the series within the final parts of the book. But again, I do think that the last part was definitely more heavy on the character stories wrapping up than the actual whole point of the Clockwork series, which was the battle with Mortmain and his infernal devices and the whole Clave and console issue. I think that was just kind of wrapped up a little bit too easily and a little bit too quickly. I also did not like how she handled the love triangle. I think she tried to make it too happy. She tried to basically let Tessa have her cake and eat it too. So she made Jem the silent brother so that she was basically forced to choose Will, although Will was the one I was cheering for the whole time. I just think that their relationship was, I don't know, there was more like angst there, and I think that that's why I liked it more. I think with Jem, it was almost just like he was her best friend, which works in some cases, like that works for me, but like the attraction and the chemistry from them was just weird to read. I didn't feel that like I felt it with Will, so maybe that's just a personal thing, but I don't like that. I like that she made Jem a silent brother. I think that was a great way to kind of get around his whole addiction issue and the fact that he was dying. I loved that. I don't love that it was the catalyst for her finally choosing Will. I wish she would have chose Will on her own. I think she would have. I think she wanted to, but she felt like she got boxed into a weird situation with Jem, and I didn't love that. And then I didn't like in the epilogue where it was like, oh, I'm all of a sudden like, Will's dead now. You've been alone for 50 years. I'm mortal. Let's get together. I didn't like that. That was weird. I didn't like that. But I love Tessa. I think she's a great character, and I hope that when she does appear, I think she is in the second half of the Mortal Instruments again. I can't remember exactly, but I believe she will be in the second Red Scrolls of Magic, the Lost Book of White. I believe she'll be in that, which we also got a little bit of the Lost Book of White in this series. I think it was more mentioned in the second book. But it's all tying together well. And I said this in the spoiler-free section, and I'll say it in this section too, in case this is the only one you're watching. I will do, at the end of the year, probably a large video just kind of encompassing the entire universe and where I stand with it as it is today. As we just found out recently, there will be another trilogy coming out within the next few years in its entirety. So I will rank the 4 main series. I'm not going to rank the rest of the books, because they're just kind of one-offs, but I will rank like the Mortal Instruments, the Dark Artifices, the Infernal Devices, and the Last Hours, and like which ones are my favorite series. Right now, I don't know if I liked this one more than the Mortal Instruments. I think that's going to be hard because that book series has such like it's more rooted in my life because I read it when I was younger, so I'm like rereading it now as an adult and I'm still enjoying it. But there's things I liked and didn't like about that series when I read it the first time, and there were things that I didn't like and liked about this series. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to sit on it. Obviously, I still have to finish that one and read the other 2 full trilogies. We'll see. I did enjoy this. I don't, again, know that I'd say it's my favorite, but I do really like Tessa. I am interested to see how much more we get of her story in the Mortal Instruments and possibly in the other series. I loved that Magnus was throughout this entire series. He is my favorite character in the Shadowhunters universe, and I'm hoping that he is a continuous theme in all of the books. I don't know that he will be. Obviously, he was in the Red Scroll of Magic. He will be in the Lost Book of White because those are his books. He was in the Mortal Instruments. He was in this. I am hoping so much that he is in the rest of them. Obviously, he's in the Bane Chronicles. That's about him. I'm sure he'll be in the Shadowhunter, like the Tales from the Shadowhunters Academy and the Ghosts of the Shadow Market. I just hope he's in everything because I love Magnus, and I think it'll be interesting to see the connection he has throughout the entire universe and all of the characters within this universe. So I'm hoping she does give me that. But I would recommend, obviously, but I would also recommend reading them in the order that Cassandra Clare recommends, as that is how I'm doing it now, and it makes sense. So girlfriend knows what she's saying. That's all I have to say about that. And I don't think you need to. If you want to read these as an individual, that's fine. But if you do plan on reading all of the Shadowhunters books, I would read them in the order that she recommends. That is all for this vlog. This was kind of unique for me to do like a dual, if you want the spoilers, if you don't want the spoilers kind of thing. And that way anybody can watch it. If you just watch the first half or the second half, whatever you want, or the full thing if you really want. It doesn't matter to me. But maybe I'll do this again with another series. We'll see how the year plays out. But if you've made it to this point, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read the series, what you think. If you've read the other Shadowhunters books, which one is your favorite? Which series is your favorite? Let me know so that I can go into the rest of the universe kind of having an idea of where everybody stands on that. But thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.